Well, welcome to this week's ATL Home and Market Podcast. Thank you for joining us again this week. We've got a pretty interesting topic that I think is going to be really useful for every home buyer and, frankly, for home sellers too, particularly if you're a home seller and you need money for your down payment for your next home. I'm Ira Miskin. I am a broker and team leader for Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty in the Miskin team. Along with Stephanie Miskin, my co-team leader. And joining us today is our senior team advisor and associate broker, Josh Guallett. And as I said, this week's topic, all about home loans and a myth that actually is a good element to use when you need it, but not any longer a necessity. It's called the 20% down loan. And that's something that we want to explore because really the marketplace has changed dramatically. And the use of cash and home prices and all those sorts of things really dictate how to go out and get loans and buy homes. So we're going to jump into that. Josh has been around this for a good long time, has sold a lot of homes with buyers. And so we've got, I think, some good stuff for you today. But before we jump into all of that, Steph has some cool things going on around Metro Atlanta again this week. So, Steph, turn us on to something great so we can go have some fun.
All right. Yeah, I got a lot of stuff coming up. Some of it's like I try to do the whole month of September, and some of it is going to be this weekend. So we're going to start off with this weekend is the start of Helen Oktoberfest up in Helen, Georgia. I talked about that. It's starting this weekend, and it's going all the way through to October the 4th. And it turns the whole town of Helen into this like Bavarian heaven. We talked about it. You need to go. It's lots of fun. Also, this is just for this weekend only, and it's the Chattahoochee Mountain Fair, and it runs through the 13th. It's an annual festival at the fairground in Clarksville, and they're going to have a rodeo and live performances, livestock shows, art shows, carnival rides, vendors, games, food. So it'll be a blast, and it's with the rodeo and stuff, I think the kids will love it. Also, another state fair is going to be happening, and that's going to start, though, September the 18th to the 28th. And that one's a little closer. It's in Marietta, and it's the big annual fair in Marietta. The same thing, carnival rides, performances, shows, petting zoo. I think the only thing they're not going to have at Marietta is going to be the rodeo. So those are a bunch of things that are going on. Oh, yeah, one more thing, and this is right in Atlanta. It's going to be at the Home Depot backyard. We talked about it a while ago, but it's on now for 4 days, and it's the Atlanta Food and Wine Festival. And that's where there'll be over 200 of the most celebrated chefs will be in town. You can buy a ticket for 1 day or every day. It's going to run through the 14th. Lots of tents, lots of different kinds of food, gourmet food. So that's right in the city. And again, that'll go on for this weekend only. Again, at the Home Depot backyard downtown. So now I want to talk about some things too they'll go on a little bit longer. And one thing that I think is so much fun for the kids and the families to do is corn maze. And there's a great corn maze, and it's called Uncle Shuck's Corn Maze. And that one is located in Dawsonville, Georgia, which is not that far. It's probably about an hour and a half from the city. And it's a 15-acre corn maze and a pumpkin patch in Dawsonville, Georgia. So that's opening up let's see, when does that open up? That opens up September the 20th. And it runs all the way through November. The hours are on their website. It's corn maze and pumpkin patch, and it's called Uncle Shuck's in Dawsonville, Georgia. And as I always talk about state parks to try to make a nice, fun weekend for the family and yourself, Amicalola Falls State Park is really close to Dawsonville. So you could stay at the state park. That's the one that has that beautiful lodge. It also has glamping and there's all kinds of different facilities that you can use to spend a nice weekend and go to the pumpkin patch and go. You can also, it's not that far from Helen, so you could go over there. You could have a great full weekend up there. Now, if you decide you don't want to travel and you want to stay in the city and you have a child, I think that this sounds spectacular. There's a new show at the Atlanta Puppet Theater downtown, and it's called Cows on Keys, Click on Strike. And it's based on the book by Doreen Cronlin with illustrations by Betsy Lewin. And it's called Cows on Types, Cows on Strike. And it says, Farmer Brown can't believe his ears. Join the barnyard fun in this musical adaptation of the children's book that won a 2001 award. So this is going to be going on all through September. It looks like it's going to be so much fun for the kids. It's based on a well-known book. Teachers recommend this book. So I think that would be something fun if you wanted to do it. It goes all the way through September, I think, into the first week in October. All right. Cows on Keys, Cows on Strike is the name of it at the Atlanta Puppet Theater. Now, I told you about this the other week, and this also plays in with the Puppet Theater because September, I don't know if you guys remember, but I talked about this all during September in many, many, many of the well-known venues in Atlanta, kids get in free. So that's going on all through September. All right. Now, when I say everything, I'm just going to read off the list of names of some of these people that you can bring your kid to the place and get in for free. One of them is the Center for Puppetry Arts, which is what we just talked about. There's the Atlanta History Society, the Fernbank Museum, the Georgia Aquarium. Now, if you've never been to the Georgia Aquarium, you need to go. And if you can get your kid in free, I mean, what a better time to go. The High Museum, the Lego Discovery Center, the Tellus Science Museum, World of Coke, and the zoo. For all those venues during the month of September, if you buy an adult ticket, your child is free. So that saves the family tons of money. So that's what I had for this week. I know it's a lot. I try to give you as much as I can cram into my allotted time and kind of make it, spread it out through the city and further out, and the dates also. So lots to do.
Yeah, you know, Metro Atlanta is such a boring place. There's
There's nothing
to ever do.
There's nothing to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this thing about September and your kid get in free. I mean, just think about it. You have two kids, two parents, one buys a ticket. So you're getting into the aquarium for like half the price almost.
It's hard to beat that. It's hard to
beat that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and a lot of people don't know about this. So I really wanted to get the word out because also, September, I don't know if every county's a little different, but they have a fall break in September, the kids.
Yep.
And I know
next week. Cherokee week after next. Yep.
Week after next. They're off the whole week. What a better time to use this. Go to the aquarium, go to the Lego museum, go to the puppet place. I think it's just great.
Yeah, so that way as an adult, you get to be a kid.
Right.
And your kid gets to have a good time, and the adult kid doesn't have to pay for it.
Right.
Which is terrific, because these venues, they have grown over time and they've become more and more and more fun. Not just, it's a science museum.
No.
If you haven't been to the Science Museum and you have any inclination to really want to know about what is it like to discover, that's a totally cool place. Just as much fun as the Lego Museum or the aquarium,
right,
or that puppet theater, which we began going to 18,000 years ago when our kids were little.
right.
And it was amazing fun then, and it is even more fun now because it's so interactive. So take advantage of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll keep reminding you about it all during September so everybody can take advantage of it.
Yeah. Josh, you have 2 kids, so what are
Oh,
you
yeah.
doing this weekend? We're going to the Papa Joe.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
That's right.
So you need to go from someplace to the puppet show, and
Right.
that would be from your home. And in order to have a home, you have to be able to get a down payment. And in order to be able to get a down payment, get a loan rather, you need a down payment. And because the economy and the world buying residential real estate has changed so dramatically over the last just 10 or 15 years, no less, over the last 100 years, everything about what you need in order to be able to purchase a home, which starts with having money, has really changed and evolved. But at the core, many years ago, and Josh, I think you can fill us in on this, the concept of having 20% of the cost of the home to put down as a down payment became the standard all the way back to 1930. Josh, can you give us a little history of where the 20% down payment idea came from and what it's evolved into?
Yeah, so really the 20% down payment came from really protecting the banks. Everything has been really about protecting banks and protecting the loans. So if you were to put 20% down on your value or on your property, it really kind of help ensure that you're going to take care of the property. You're going to hold the value. You're not going to let the home go into foreclosure. So that because of that, there are a couple of things that really kind of popped up to, you know, prevent people from having to pay 20%. But that's initially where it came from, in order to protect the investment for both you as well as the lender.
And this goes back all the way to 1930, right after the beginning of what they called back then the Great Depression. The FHA and what was then called the Department of Veterans Affairs set up standards and fixed rate programs in order to be able to get mortgages. But one of the criteria, as Josh said, was to have a sufficient amount of money to put down so that the lenders, which was not the government, but the government was creating the programs, the lenders, the banks, felt secure enough so that in case you didn't make any payments, right?
Right.
The bank
That-
could, right? The
They,
bank
they,
could
they will be protected,
Yeah.
because if you're buying a home for $200,000 and you put $40,000 down, it's a more likely chance you'll of course pay for the home itself. You will make the payments, but also if you don't make the payments, the bank who gave you the 200,000 wants to make sure that they're okay too.
That's right.
So that's kind of where it came from, and then the lenders really kind of followed suit with the government guidelines.
And then in the 1950s, I guess it was, the concept of what is called private mortgage insurance, PMI, came into force. And what was the reason for that, Josh?
So it all goes back to protecting, making sure that if someone's going to take the risk of handing that potential home buyer, that much money, that they're also going to be protected. That investment is going to be protected. So PMI was actually created back around in the mid 1956, I believe. And what they did was it allowed for lenders to be able to lower the required down payment so that everyone was not required to put 20% down and still be protected in providing those loans. So I like to think, if someone's going to hang you $200,000 and expect to pay them back, or $300,000 or $400,000 or $500,000, you kind of want to be able to be sure you're going to get paid back. And PMI was created to help promote the idea that they will get paid back either way.
Because basically what PMI is, or private mortgage insurance, is it doesn't pay off the entire mortgage. It pays off the balances of the mortgage so that the lender has enough money paid to them so that if you don't pay that loan and if the lender has to foreclose, the difference between what they get if they have to foreclose and resell the home and what you owe is paid by the mortgage insurance. Because keep in mind that a loan is a bank putting out a huge sum of money. You know, if a bank is lending you $2 or $3 or $4 or $500,000 that you're going to pay off gradually over a 30-year period, yes, they make money. You know, every month they make some money on the interest that's charged on that loan. But still, you're making use for, you know, if you stay in that home for the entire length of the mortgage, 30 years, you're making use of somebody else's money for 30 years. And the people that are giving you the money would like to feel secure enough that they're going to get paid back for that loan that they've given you and make money on it because it is a business. But then things began to change. And as Josh, you said, the amounts of money that were necessary to put down in order to secure a loan began to change. And a number of different programs came to fore. Josh, Steph, what are those programs? And they're pretty commonplace today, but they evolved from the 20% into what's currently going on today.
So there's a lot. There's a lot. Some of them are specific to certain careers or certain fields. Some allow greater down payment assistance if you're in those fields. But there's a lot of programs available to just about everyone. There's a lot of first-time homebuyer programs. And in real estate, a first-time homebuyer is anyone who has not owned the property within the last 3 years. So you could have owned 3, 4, 5, 10 homes. But if you have not owned one in the last 3 years, you're now a first-time homebuyer and eligible for a lot of new programs. So there's some that will cover your entire down payment. Right, down payments being, you know, FHA being 3.5%, conventional being as low as a 3%, but could be as high as 5% depending on what loan type you go with. And then there's down payment programs that will give you 3.5%. Down payment programs that'll give you up to 5%. That'll cover your down payment plus a little bit more. You know, we've had situations where, you know, between negotiations, between the down payment assistance and between what we negotiate with the seller, there are times when buyers walk away with money. They put the money they put back, the earnest money, they walk away back with their earnest money. So really, they put nothing into the house with great deals. So down payment assistance is a great tool, a great vehicle that a lot of people need to use nowadays, honestly. You know.
Yep, and we're going to dig into that a little bit more as we start to dissect some of these things. But Steph, you remember back, this is a while ago, but remember that we had a...
I know where you're going with this. Okay,
yes.
So he's talking about VA loans, right?
Yeah.
So if you're a vet or an ex, you know, if you were in the service, or I even think if it's a family member was in the service, you're eligible for a VA loan. And with a VA loan, you have no money down. Zappo. You don't have to pay any money for a down payment. So all you have to do is have the money for closing costs, moving, you know, inspections, things like that, if you qualify for a VA loan. Of course, you have to get VA eligibility, but once you've got that, and most loan officers will do VA loans. And yeah, I did this, and the guy actually got money back at the table. My buyer got money back at the table.
No, it's weird. It's weird about VA loans too. I don't know if it's not taught or, you know, in military, I don't know. But a lot of people in the military, especially, you know, young people in the military, don't know how to actually use their VA loan. Now, there's a lot of people that, you know, have a VA loan, have access to a VA loan, that have created entire, you know, investment portfolios, you know, using that as a, you know, starting point, or using that as a boost, that very few people have, unless they, of course, you know, went through the military and have that as an option.
Yeah, I mean, they still need a good real estate agent and a good loan officer to explain it to them, because even though they were in the military and they might have heard about it, they don't know the steps. You got to get a letter from the VA first in order to qualify, and then it moves down a series of steps. So it helps to work with somebody who has facilitated VA loans, which we do a lot of. And another one is USDA. That's another loan type that has zero down. Now, that is kind of location specific, and it tends to be in more less densely populated areas, more rural areas, and it works off of a map. But anybody, you don't have to be a vet, anybody who wants to live in some of these locations and qualifies can, and if it's in that location, can get a USDA loan, and that's no money down. Again, so you're saying, well, I don't have any money to buy a house. Well, yeah, you do if you want to live in a certain location, or if you're a vet, you don't have to even have any money saved. I mean, big amounts of money. I wouldn't say any money saved, but no money for a down payment. You're going to need, there'll be other costs involved in purchasing a house, but it greatly reduces the amount of money you have to come to the table with.
So let's break this down a little bit, because fairly often when we're talking with prospective home buyers, particularly first-time home buyers that are not, they've never experienced the process, and so are just uneducated about the elements of how it works. One of the things that they say is, well, we have to save more money in order for us to be able to buy a home.
Right.
What do you say to a buyer prospect about money, the availability of money, the use of money, the relationship of down payments to interest rates and all that sort of thing, to help them to think through how to buy that house, what the cost of the house is, what it's going to cost them every month? What do you take them through? Josh, give us an insight into how you do the preliminary education for buyers to understand they don't necessarily need 20% down and have to wait 10 years in order to save the money.
So a lot of times I like to think about more towards opportunity costs. So what are you losing by just staying where you are? So one question I ask literally everybody is, why are you moving right now? Why are we even having this conversation? Why are you buying? Why do you want to move next, in 2 months? Why not 3 months? Why not last month? Why not last year? Why not 5 years from now? What is special about right now that you say you're ready? And with that, whatever the answer is to that, and usually there's some pressing factor. So when it comes to the cost of you paying, perfect example, someone paying $2,400 a month in rent, just in rent, and they've been renting there for 10 years, 13 years, 14, whatever it may be, 11, 12, 13. What happens is you realize how much money is being lost every single month. And then whatever fear, whatever anxiety there is about purchasing a home, it still has to be better than them renting for 10, 11, 12, 13 years. They've lost several thousands upon thousands of dollars. They have nothing to show for it. A lot of times the phone call is because they're going to go up on the rent another $1,000 to $2,000, or say, another $300 or $400. Let's say that. The next lease renewal, that is what's getting them to finally make that phone call, where they've already gone through that renewal 4 or 5 times, and they've increased the price then too. So when it comes to things like down payment, when it comes to things like what needs to be overcome in order for you to be ready to buy, I kind of help them through the entire process, because a lot of times, if it's about down payment, we can figure that out. If it's about closing costs, we can figure that out. If it's about making sure that they find the right house, of course, or making sure they're happy and they're satisfied and it's a good investment for the next property, we can work that out. That fear is the one thing that holds people back. So I try to address the fear first, because we have solutions to everything else. We have a solution to, again, to the down payment. We have a solution to finding the house. We have a solution to, helping them find the right documents. Perfect example, a lot of VA people, a lot of people from the military don't realize the most you really need in order for the VA loan, outside of the basic, you need a job, you need to be able to show that you can, get this loan and pay this loan back, is you start with just having your DD 214. So those things we can figure out real quick. So I try to make it as easy as possible, help them through that fear, because once you get started, it's a step-by-step process. As long as you follow those steps that I always offer and always recommend over 15 years of being in real estate, it's a smooth ship. It's a smooth sell.
So the basic flow then is that I want to move because, and there are many becauses, but a lot of the becauses, particularly for first-time home buyers who've been renters, is I'm just, over the idea of paying my landlord's mortgage. Now, if you're the investor, having somebody pay your mortgage is exactly what you want. And there's a lot of people who want to or have to rent. Some of it is lifestyle. Some of it is just their credit is so poor that they can't get a loan because they don't know how to manage money well. Or they just don't have enough monthly income, they think, to cover the cost of the mortgage and all of the expenses that go with it, even though fairly often, if somebody's paying $2,200 or $2,500 a month in rent, you can find a home in which the mortgage amount, which includes the principal and interest on the mortgage, right? And then taxes and your annual homeowner's insurance and private mortgage insurance, when you lump it all together, you can buy a house and have your monthly mortgage payment at about $2,500 for a house that might have a sale price of, I don't know, $275,000 to $325,000. And you own the house, and those expenses are tax deductible. Oh my gosh, you see.
And another thing that really trips first-time homebuyers, I mean, really not just first-time homebuyers up, but people that don't have the biggest budget, is that they want everything now. Delayed gratification is a very, it's a dirty word nowadays, So what happens a lot of times is, for that first home, it's not your forever home. It may not be the perfect home. You may not get all the bathrooms and bedrooms that you want, but the way most, when you see those $1 million savings, very few people have the ability just to pay that $1 million mortgage. They went in, they had a $200,000 home. They either sold it, saved that, paid down their equity, built up equity, sold that property at $300,000. They put the equity into a $400,000 home. And then so on and so forth. Before too long, you wind up at the $800,000 home, paying a $300,000, $400,000 mortgage, which makes it's a lot easier, to handle than paying a, $800,000 or $1 million mortgage. So you have to get your foot in the door first. If you can't get your foot in the door first, you have no equity to build to move forward towards that. And you have to get a lot of people over that.
And so that talks to the idea, Steph, of, I'm going to wait 3 or 4 or 5 years to save 20%.
Right.
But what are they giving up to wait the 5 years?
Right. They're giving up. They're just throwing their money away. I mean, they're paying their landlord's mortgage, and you got to get them over that hump that Josh was talking about. They might say they want to wait because, they want to buy a $400,000 house in a certain neighborhood. Well, okay, but right now you can afford a $250,000 house in this neighborhood, and in a year or two, more like 2 years, you probably can. If you do everything correctly, you can move up. So stop wasting time, number one, and stop wasting your money, because you're just paying your landlord's rent. And again, like you said, so many of the things in home ownership are tax deductible. They don't have any of those benefits when they're renting. And it's getting them to wrap, like Josh said, delayed gratification, wrap your head around, the reality of the situation. We don't make this up. It's like, this isn't, the realtor making it up. These are facts. These are facts of life. And getting them to understand that.
So somebody says, well, I want to be able to have 20% down because I want to save, not pay the private mortgage insurance. And how long is it going to take you to save 20% to buy that $400,000 house, which means you need $80,000 down?
Right.
Well, I don't know, probably 2, 3, 4 years. Say, okay. And if house prices continue to appreciate, just in the typical average on an annual basis in Metro Atlanta, which is around 4% a year, that $400,000 house in 5 years is going to cost you $460,000.
Right.
So now you need not 80,000, but you need 90,000. And you've given up all of the years of being able to build equity in the home that you purchased, plus the tax deductions, and have the leverage, as Josh said, in 4 years to take the equity out of your current home and use that as a down payment, and don't have to bring new money to the deal and buy a bigger house with a greater value.
I want to know, how many stories have you all heard where I need to save for 2 or 3 years and they don't have enough for this 20% down payment, and something happens.
Right.
The tires, all 4 tires are going to pop simultaneously. There's no question.
Yes.
Someone's
Warranty is going to break.
Like if you're trying to save $80,000, that's $79,000. Somebody, I guarantee, is going to get sick. Like there's always something. So when you're in the home, there's bets against that. The rental amount is suddenly going to go up. There's always going to be something, but we can't control what life brings to us. But all we can do is prepare, and actually owning where you live helps you prepare.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And the hardest move is the first move, because it's the scariest, because it's brand new. And it tends to have the biggest struggle to get that preliminary amount of money necessary. And because you're new to this system, you're going in and you really worked hard to get your credit score up to 680, and you're paying top interest rate on that loan. Whereas 2, 3, 4, 5 years later, in a home with equity, with good, consistent mortgage payments, no issues on your credit score, and you've kept in mind that what you want to do is build your credit score, and now it's 5 years later, you have 15, 18, 20% of equity that you'll be able to draw out of that house to buy a new home, and you've worked to get your credit score from 680 to 780. Even if the interest rates remain the same, instead of you being at the top of the interest rate ladder, paying the highest amount, because you have history of payment, because you have home with equity, and because you have worked to consistently over the next couple of years build your credit score, instead of paying, let's say, 6.5%, that might be the average, you might only pay 6.25% or even 6% on that loan, which means you can get a bigger mortgage at less expense. And all of that is part of being able to make use of the different kinds of loan programs that are available and the value of money. So it's like Josh, you described is the FHA loan at 3.5%, right?
Right.
There are a good number of lenders that will give you a conventional loan at what, Josh, 5%?
You can actually get as low as 3%, depend if you're a first-time home buyer.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
And then periodically, there are some of the big banks and bankers. And when I say banks, that's not necessarily, Wells Fargo or, Bank of America, but the big bank lenders, like, for example, United Wholesale Mortgage, which at this particular moment has a special home loan program for people who qualify, in which you can get a loan with 1% down, and United Wholesale Mortgage will pre-finance the extra 2% in order for you to bring only 1%. So if you're going to buy a $300,000 house and you need $10,500 down for an FHA loan, or you can get a 1% conventional loan because of your credit and you qualify with United Wholesale Mortgage, you only have to bring $3,000 down and you're still walking up with the same amount of equity and you've got that home. So there's a wide array of mortgage products that balance out down payment with interest rates in order for you to be able to get into that home. But there's also, and there's a variety of them, something that Josh talked about early on that, Josh, I'd like you and Steph to dig into a bit, which is the use of down payment assistance programs in order to be able to have enough cash necessary to cover down payment and closing costs. And then there's a little trick that good negotiators, your real estate professional, they're a good negotiator, can actually help you with costs. But talk, guys, about the down payment assistance programs, what they are, how they work, and what the value is for people who want to buy now, but need to supplement the amount of cash that's necessary to get into the home.
So, there are a lot of down payment programs. There's a lot of DPA programs that, are actually pretty easy to qualify for. There's some that you can go as low as a 600 credit score, and there's some no taxes. If you're W-2, no taxes, no tax returns required. So what down payment assistance allows you to do is just really get the ball rolling. There are some people, it just really depends on their motivation, also on the prospects or the client story. It is, what are they hoping to do? Like, what are they doing? What are they waiting for? What are their motivations? There are certain people that are waiting on that settlement, and that there are people that are really waiting on those settlements, and they know they're going to get that settlement, but that lease is about to renew. They're going to have to renew for 2 years in order to get the break. I had a client that if they did not renew their lease, their lease was going to go up $1,200. If they were going to go month to month, it was going to go $1,200 a month, an extra $1,200. So it allows you to go ahead and step out there. So again, there's programs like USDA, like Stephanie brought up earlier. There's Georgia Dream. There's a lot of lender-specific programs. There's a lot of lender-specific programs, like including the 1% down payment. That will allow you to go ahead and get the ball rolling. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say there's also those targeted programs from the Atlanta Neighborhood Development Partnerships.
Yes.
That are specific areas in town. And if you are a hero, and a hero would mean like if you're a teacher or a firefighter or a police officer or an EMT, they have some great down payment assistance programs through the Atlanta Neighborhood Development Partnership.
In addition to the home, the Heroes program that we offer.
Right.
So if you work with particular lenders and down payment programs, you'll get multiple breaks if you're a teacher or if you're a firefighter or a nurse, so on and so forth. I like to think about people that are running in when everyone is running out. Those are the people I'm thinking about.
That's right.
So those people get an extra boost from not just the lender, but also from us.
Yes. And one thing I think about, as I'm thinking about this, as we're talking about this, is there's so much available. There are so many different loan types available that will allow people to not have to think that they have 20%. There's so many down payment assistance programs that are available that people, the general public, is just not aware of. And when they think, okay, so I'm going to buy a house, I'm going to go into my local bank and talk to the guy in my local bank and see what kind of loan they can get me and see what I qualify for. I mean, they're doing themselves a huge disservice. These people don't work with these programs. You need to work with a realtor that knows them. The realtor knows the lenders, and it's big lenders that, like Ira said, that have these programs. You just go into your local little bank and they're not going to be talking to you about this stuff. So these people are getting discouraged when, if they came to us and we guided them to the correct loan officers to talk to, then more than likely there will be a solution. Like Josh said, you got to figure it out, but there will be a solution. And if they need credit repair, we have somebody that we can hook them up with that will help them with that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's really it's fear. It's what Ira said. They're fearful.
See, buying a house is it's oftentimes a deeply emotional experience. I want to come home to some place that's mine, that's warm, that's friendly, that's protective, that's safe. All of that is critically important in order to be comfortable with the house that you buy. But you also have to remember that it's a business deal, an expensive, big business deal, 2, 3, 4, 500, $600 million, big business deal with loans and financing and
Contracts.
contracts.
Yeah.
So you have to sit in the very beginning as you work through with a loan professional, particularly a loan professional with a team. And a critical part of that team is to have really good lenders available that you can interview and talk with, that can help you to plot out the process and the math involved so that you know how to take next steps, how to achieve financing, how to balance out what your income is now with what your costs are going to be, and project out, if, you're in a situation, and many people are, where the income that you're earning today is going to be less than the income that you're going to be earning 5 years from now, even including inflation. If your monthly mortgage payment is not going up, with the only exception of slight adjustments annually for your home insurance and for your property taxes, the mortgage itself, the big center chunk of the costs, stays the same for the entire length of the mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can reasonably comfortably afford, let's say, $2,800 a month for principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and PMI, and your income grows by, let's say, over the next 5 years, 10%. Your costs for the home haven't grown 10%. They may have only grown 1 or 2%. And so if you choose to, you can take some of that money and pay it back into your mortgage to raise your equity. You need to have a good business plan for the use of your money and how that use of money helps you to build equity and value in your home. This is something, that if you have a plan, here's an example of something that Stephanie and I actually did. When we bought the home that we first bought, when we moved to Georgia, interest rates way back then were, if you got a great deal, and we did, you were only paying 12%. 12%. Okay. People are in shock when they look at a 6 or a 6.5 or 6.75% mortgage today. And interest rates at that time was zooming up. They ultimately hit the ceiling of about 21%. We were able to get a 30-year fixed rate mortgage on a home that we bought at 12%. But what we did was we waited until interest rates began to reduce themselves over the course of time, and we refinanced the loan. But we just didn't refinance the loan at a lower rate. We also refinanced the loan out of a 30-year mortgage into a 15-year mortgage. Now, if you're paying off that same amount of money for 15 years, you're going to pay a little bit more in principal. But the interest rates on a 15-year loan were lower, almost down to 7%. And then because we were each year earning more money each year, we took some of that additional income that we had, and instead of paying one payment a month, we paid 1.5 payments a month. We literally paid off that 15-year mortgage in 7.5 years. Saved us a couple of $100,000 in interest. And between the first mortgage and the last mortgage, we owned our home mortgage free in 10 years. And the house continued to appreciate in value over time. We bought it for $105,000, and the house in today's market is probably worth $650,000 or $700,000 with no mortgage. It's the use of money, and it's working with a loan professional who will stick with you over time, who will periodically send you a notice. We just sent out a number of notices to some of the folks that we helped get through our preferred lender. They helped them get mortgages to alert them, alert, guess what? Your mortgage that you bought 18 months or 2 years ago was 7.25%. Guess what? You could refinance at 6.25%, saving 1% interest rate annually on that mortgage, which is a good chunk of money. And so if they refinance, their monthly payment on their mortgage actually goes down, as opposed to paying rent where your monthly payment goes up. So there's a plan involved. Steph, I know that when you talk with people and when you've helped a lot of the folks that you've helped over the years buy homes, you didn't just drop them in a house and say, okay, you got it, see you around. There's an ongoing dialogue, isn't there, about paying attention to the marketplace and how to use that home and its value.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, most of the people that I sold houses to, I'm still in contact with. So, we chat at least a couple of times a year, see how things are going, see if, are they thinking of downsizing, upsizing, how are they doing with their mortgage? Have they made any improvements on the house? Let them know what the house is worth in today's market if this is something that they're thinking about. So, and like Josh says, life happens, they have a baby, they outgrew the house, they get divorced, they get married. All those kind of things are going to affect where they're living. So absolutely, it's not just drop them in the house. And another thing that I think about when you say put them in a house, I never, ever, ever want to make somebody house poor. So when they're looking for a house, if they want a $400,000 house, but they really need to be at 350. And here's the reason you need to be at 350, so that if you want to go out and have a McDonald's hamburger, or you want to take your kid to the aquarium, you got money, or somebody gets sick. So you cannot spend every single penny that you make thinking, oh, I want that $400,000 house. I know I qualify for it, and that's what I want. I would be doing them a disservice if I even showed them that $400,000 house. So that's really an important thing to help people understand.
Mhm.
And I've done it for so many years that it's kind of just natural for me.
Yeah. So Josh, you help somebody to begin to feel comfortable with the process, or at least understand all the mechanics of it. And where they're comfortable, we help them by having one of the key lenders that we work with talk with them and take them through the various programs. How do you help the home buyer to assess which program to start with? And then, of course, if they're going to refinance, they're not stuck at the same program. So how does that all work?
So depending on whether or not they have their down payment saved, whether or not they do have the down payment again available, whether they need down payment assistance, what their professional career is, we really just make a decision based on that. That's the initial conversation. So I'm really kind of versed. I've just been exposed to. I have a lot of network experience, a lot of connections with a lot of different lenders, a lot of different types of lenders, to kind of know where to point them. Okay, so if they're self-employed, that's going to immediately exclude them from these programs. However, it will qualify them for these programs. Have they filed taxes? Which is honestly not a bad thing. Whether they did or haven't, depending on their job and depending on their credit score, that may not even be a conversation. So it's just really how they answer those questions, whether or not which lender to kind of point them, at least start them in that direction. So,
Right.
And
I always used to say to them, look, the reason you work with a really well-oiled team is everybody is an expert in their area. It's kind of like, I would say, it's like I'm the surgeon and the lender's the anesthesiologist. The lender knows everything there is about being an anesthesiologist. I know everything about the surgery. You have to work with somebody that's an expert. I cannot, as a real estate professional, know every little nuance of every new loan that's coming out or new down payment. That's not my job. My job is to take that and then find you the perfect house within those criteria. So that's where that's where it's so important to work with a team and work with an agent who is a full-time agent, not your sister's friend who does, who has a full-time job and sells real estate on the side. You need somebody who knows this profession inside and out and puts you with the right people.
so you get the structure of the process. You make decisions about where you want to be, how much you can afford, and then where to go to get that money, and what the right type of loan is to work with. And then you're in the home for a while. Interest rates change. The types of loans available change. And you make decisions about refinancing the loan
Right.
because you're going to stay in the house. Refinance it for a lower interest rate. Refinance it for a shorter term. Refinance it because you want to get out of the FHA loan and get into a conventional loan, because with FHA, private mortgage insurance is for the entire term of the loan, versus if you refinance out of FHA, which to start with has a lower interest rate than a conventional loan, But now when you're refinancing, if you refinance into a conventional loan, it's probably because you're going to get a lower interest rate because interest rates have changed. But also, once you reach 20% of equity in the home, private mortgage insurance drops off. And so then your monthly payment is reduced. All of those things become important factors in the business plan of
Right.
owning this place that you love to come home to. And so having both sides of the coin.
Right. I want to say one other thing. A lot of my clients have been in their homes for 10, 15, 20 years. Not everybody wants to, buy a house every 5 years. They just don't want to do that. I have one lady that I'm thinking about, was a single woman from India and had a little child and found herself in a divorce. She was renting. She was educated. She had a great job, but she was petrified about trying to go through this process. Anyway, it took a lot of hand-holding and a lot of talking with their family in India, et cetera, et cetera. But we got her into a house, and she is still in that house. When I sold her that house, her little girl was 3. Her little girl is now 25. She's still in the house. I think she refinanced it I know she refinanced it a couple of times to get the interest rate down, but she has no intention of house hopping, and she's very happy. So, everybody's different is what I'm saying. If you find yourself that you want to be in the house for a long time because it's comfortable, you like the school district, whatever it is, you can refinance if you need to. That's not a big deal.
And so, you stay in a house for 25 years and that house now becomes a good part of what your retirement fund might
Absolutely.
be.
Absolutely.
All of this is contributable. Now, just to go back to the very beginning to say, no, you do not need 20% down to buy a home. You can buy a house with 0 down. You can buy a house with 1% down. You can buy a house with 3.5% down.
Right.
But the plus side of putting more money down, if you have the flexibility to have the cash available, and this is where if you buy a home and 5 or 6 or 7 years later, you buy a bigger home,
Right.
you're using the cash you're taking out of your current home, not out of your pocket, to buy that bigger home.
Right.
And you're putting a larger amount of money down. The more you put down, the better your interest rates, the higher the start of your equity, the more secure the lender feels in giving you that loan. So the pluses and minuses of having more money down: you don't want to take every dime you have and put it into buying a house because now you have 0 money in case there's an emergency. But you also want to make sure that when you're financing that loan, there's a good balance between what the down payment is, where that money is received from, which is why programs like down payment assistance are so great, and how over time you then build equity to use the house to be able to either have more money when you finally sell that house or retire, or use the equity to buy a bigger home, or use the equity to buy investment property. But all of this is balanced around. You're not tied to, you got to have 20% or you're not buying a home.
No, and I think the big takeaway from this whole podcast is this is not always general knowledge. And so, if anyone out there is listening to this and they're thinking about buying a house and they're thinking they don't have enough money saved, you really need to call an experienced real estate professional. I mean, to find out what is available, and not your girlfriend's friend who sells 3 houses a year. Because then you'll get discouraged and you won't buy a house and you'll keep supporting your landlord. So I think if nothing else, if anybody hears this and they're thinking about it and they're like, I don't know if I got enough money, say, give us a call. We'll talk to you on the phone. We don't even have to meet in person. A lot of this stuff can be done on Zoom, and maybe we can get you on your road to financial freedom and stop paying somebody else's equity. Stop paying somebody else's, down payment.
So as we come to the close of this podcast today, Josh, any final thoughts on the reality of no, you don't need 20% down and the value of being able to figure out a good loan?
I think it just really goes down to exactly what Stephanie said. It's more, I think a lot of that knowledge, because I know where initially that 20% idea came from. And, if you talk to someone 20 years ago, that was, their default thought. But speaking to someone who actually lives and breathes the business, who actually lives and breathes real estate, who deals with it on a daily basis, who helps, a lot of different families and a lot of different situations, it's going to be the quickest way to figure all these issues out. Because outside of, you're waiting for that kid to graduate, and they have to stay in that school district. You're waiting for the kid to graduate. At that point, you're downsizing. At that point, you're finally going to leave that very expensive apartment. Outside of that 9 times out of 10, everything else can be solved. So, yeah, it's the biggest thing.
So there you go. There are solutions to pretty much every issue. You have the issue, and your real estate professional and the team around them are there not just to help you buy and sell, but to help you work through and have a plan that lets you buy or sell in the best way possible.
Yep.
So that means then that you have enough time to be able to take your kids and go have a good time someplace in Metro Atlanta. So, Steph, give us a quick summary of all the cool things that you talked about.
All right. So I'm going to kind of list them because there's a lot. All right. Helen, Georgia, Oktoberfest. Go up there. Have fun. September the 4th to October the 26th. Go wander around Helen. Clarksville, Georgia, Chattahoochee Mountain Fair. Again, that's this weekend. It's September the 5th to the 13th. Go up there. It's a fairground. You're going to have a rodeo. Have fun. Marietta, North Georgia State Fairground is coming. State Fair is coming. That will be next weekend, starting September the 18th to the 28th. Lots of fun. I've been there with my grandkids. The only thing they don't have is a rodeo, but they got everything else. This weekend, the next 4 days, is the Atlanta Food and Wine Festival. Downtown, 200 plus chefs, lots of wine, lots of food. Buy a ticket. You can buy a ticket for a day, buy a ticket for 2 days. It's at the Home Depot backyard downtown. Okay. Then we have, again, I talked about the corn maze, the 15-acre corn maze and pumpkin patch in Dawsonville, Georgia. Uncle Shucks is the name of the place. Check that out. Go up there, have a good time. And while you're up there, that's going to start. Let me just look at this. That's starting in about a week, I think. Yeah, that starts in about a week. September 20th, all the way through the end of November. And the hours are on their site, Uncle Shucks. Stay in Alacalola Falls State Park. Have a great weekend. If you're in town with the kids, go to the Center for Puppetry Arts. See the new show, Cows on Keys, Cows. Chickens on Strike. It's all through September. It looks adorable. And take part in the special that I was telling you about all through September, where you don't pay for your kids. So get online and book yourself something, whether it be the Puppets Theater or any of these other things I talked about, the Fern Bank, the aquarium, the Lego Center. Just go on and say, free events in Atlanta during the month of September for kids. It'll list all the places that there are, the zoo, Coca-Cola, and have some fun, especially now that you got what is that called? Fall break coming up for the kids. Use that time and utilize the fact that you can get in and not have to pay for your child. And that's what I got.
Okay. So have fun and play, have fun and buy. There you go. There's the end motto for the deal. So for this week, Josh and Stephanie and I want to thank you very much for listening in to ATL Home and Market Podcast. You know, the interest rates and banks and all of that, not necessarily the greatest amount of fun, but boy, is it important for you to be able to know how to make use of it and know who to go to help you to understand the processes to make use of it so you can achieve that equity building, home owning, real estate owning goal. So we want to thank you again for joining us this week. If you like what you heard, please on YouTube, like us. And if this is the first time that you're listening in, go ahead and subscribe because there's just a big list of really great information about what's going on in Metro Atlanta and the home buying and the home selling processes and all of the different ways in which you can use real estate to your advantage on our YouTube channel. If you want to have some more information about what we've talked about today, about talking to a lender, understanding interest rates, or any other questions about real estate, or you want to just get information about how to evaluate your current home if you're thinking about moving up or moving down and buying another home, all you need to do is just click on the links and contact us, or you can call or text us, and we will be happy to provide you with all the information that you need. So again, for Josh Guallett, Stephanie, and myself, we want to thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again next time on ATL Home in Atlanta.
Have a great week.
Have a good one.